She alleges that Biden is allowing a surge in illegal aliens and illegal narcotics that's flowing into the United States, and that he's creating a national security crisis and endangering the lives of everyday Americans due to his open border policies. Now, the Congresswoman's efforts have gained little traction so far among Republicans, and the White House, predictably, called the move a shameless sideshow political stunt. Still, these new numbers are major warning signs for the president, especially as we head towards the 2024 election. We begin tonight with the results of an exclusive new poll that reveals just how worried Americans are by the prospect of Middle Eastern terrorists coming through the U.S.-Mexican border to unleash catastrophic terror attacks inside the homeland. This, of course, is the exact fictional scenario that I lay out in my new political thriller, The Libyan Diversion. And I'm very grateful to announce that the novel just debuted on Publishers Weekly hardcover fiction bestseller list, hitting the charts at number 18. I couldn't be more grateful to all of you who bought a copy through TBN, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any of the other great chain and independent bookstores all over the country. But let's just pray that The Libyan Diversion remains what it's supposed to be, a fun and exciting summer read, not a prophecy of what's coming down the pike. Because it turns out that Americans are worried that this scenario may not prove to be fiction after all. I recently commissioned one of the best polling firms in the United States, McLaughlin and Associates, founded by my friend John McLaughlin, who's done polling for President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to go into the field and ask two questions. The first was this: with millions of people illegally entering the United States since President Biden took office, are you worried that Middle Eastern terrorists will attempt to enter the U.S. through Mexico to launch more 9/11 style terror attacks, or even to attempt a nuclear 9/11 with nuclear dirty bombs? The results were sobering, to say the least. Fully 66% of Americans say they are worried or very worried by such a scenario. Wow, that's 2 out of 3 Americans, not a small number. This includes 46% of Americans who fear terrorists will come into the United States through Mexico to pull off 9/11 style attacks. But it also includes another 20% of Americans who fear that terrorists coming through Mexico, what they really want is to attempt a nuclear 9/11 with nuclear dirty bombs. Again, these are very high numbers, and they reveal just how worried Americans are about the ongoing crisis on the Mexican border. But the survey found that evangelical Christians are far more concerned than their fellow Americans. It turns out that 79% of evangelicals, almost 80% of evangelicals, fear Middle Eastern terrorists coming through Mexico trying to pull off major attacks inside the homeland. This includes 60.4% of evangelicals who are worried about 9/11 style attacks. It also includes another 18.7%, almost 20%, who are worried about a nuclear 9/11. Again, I want to be clear. The plot of The Libyan Diversion may feel ripped from tomorrow's headlines, but I pray that it never really becomes true, that it doesn't become reality, and I would ask you to join me in this prayer. But there is reason to be worried that the White House and so much of Washington is so distracted, diverted by other issues, that they could become blindsided by attacks that could and should be prevented. Which brings me to the second part of the poll. We also asked this question. In the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, indicates that one of the responsibilities of the federal government is to protect the American people and the states from invasion. That's the word that the Constitution uses, invasion. With millions of people illegally entering the United States each year since President Biden took office, opening the country to the threat of attack by Middle Eastern terrorists, do you believe that Mr. Biden is fulfilling his constitutional duty? That's the question we asked. Now, what was the answer? It turns out that only 27% of Americans say yes. the president is doing what the Constitution requires to stop the invasion of people trying to illegally enter the United States. That's right, only 27%. Fully 6 in 10 Americans, 60% of the country, say no, they do not believe that President Biden is fulfilling his constitutional duty to protect Americans from invasion. That's a huge number. Now, not surprisingly, 88% of Republicans say no. They don't believe that President Biden is fulfilling his constitutional duty. But 60% of independents also don't believe that Biden is doing what he's supposed to do to protect that border and to keep Americans safe. What's more, fully 25% of all Democrats, 1 in 4 of all Democrats, say that President Biden is not doing his job when it comes to protecting the border and keeping Americans safe. Those numbers would be bad enough for the president, but there's more. The survey found that 25% of Americans, 1 in 4, believe that Biden isn't doing his job constitutionally, but should be given more time to change and improve his handling of the border. But more than 1 in 3 Americans, 35% in our survey, now believe that President Biden should actually be impeached for failing to fulfill his constitutional duties to keep Americans safe from invasion. In fact, 69% of Republicans now say it's time to impeach President Biden because of the border crisis. Only 6% of Democrats agree with that, but, and this is important, 27% of independents now believe that Biden should be impeached because of his handling of the border crisis. Last month, as we reported on All Israel News, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia Republican, introduced 3 articles of impeachment against President Joe Biden. For what? Well, for endangering the security of the United States and thwarting the will of Congress. She alleges that Biden is allowing a surge in illegal aliens and illegal narcotics that's flowing into the United States, and that he's creating a national security crisis and endangering the lives of everyday Americans due to his open border policies. Now, the Congresswoman's efforts have gained little traction so far among Republicans, and the White House, predictably, called the move a shameless sideshow political stunt. Still, these new numbers are major warning signs for the president, especially as we head towards the 2024 elections. Will President Biden wake up to the enormous security threat that he's created on that border, change course, and get serious about border security before it's too late? Let's pray the answer is yes. Either way, the Rosenberg Report will certainly be watching.